Back when Bloom Brewer came out, everybody went bunny mad. Now everybody seems to have dragons on the brain, so I've taken the Miirym Sentinel Wyrm average deck from EDHREC and, well, let's upgrade it, shall we? Miirym Sentinel Wyrm is a 6 mana 6/6 dragon spirit. So for 3 green, blue and a red, you get flying and ward 2. Whenever another non-token dragon enters a battlefield under your control, create a token that's a copy of it, except the token isn't legendary if that dragon is legendary. Wow, we're going to make a lot of dragons. This is the average deck list for a Miirym Sentinel Wyrm deck according to EDHREC. For those of you who don't know, you can go onto EDHREC and select an average deck for the commander that you are looking at, and it will let you export it to Archidect, Moxfield, whatever preferred website deck builder you want to use. Obviously I'm using Moxfield here, and yeah, this is what most people are running on average apparently. We've got 1 planeswalker, 30 creatures, 7 sorceries, 10 artifacts, a very questionable 35 lands, 9 instants and 7 enchantments. So some quick deck stats of the average deck before we get started. As you can see, the mana curve is a little bit up and down. I'm not super au fait with dragons, so maybe there just isn't that much in the 4-drop slot. Who knows? We're going to find out. The average mana value of our deck is 4, so we need to be at 8 mana before we can even start to double spell. Yeah, 26 is covered by 46, 48% red is covered by 63, 40% green is covered by 57%, which is not too shabby at all. We do have a crazy 15-drop with Earthquake Dragon, which is actually probably going to be a 1-drop due to the power, mana value of our dragons. So yeah, as long as we've got a board state, that's a 1-drop. And yeah, this looks like it's going to be an interesting upgrade. So I'm going to go back to breaking the deck down into sections as I always do, and we'll take it from there. So as you can see, we've got 10 pieces of card draw, 6 spells or 6 creatures essentially that all care about direct damage. We've got 3 haste enablers. We've got 3 cards that help buff the power of our dragons, normally by double strike or more power. We have got a whole bunch of ramp stuff. A lot of these are cost reducers for our dragons, which is very good. Nice to see plenty of ramp stuff. There's a lot on the top end as well, is like whenever dragons enter, they make treasures. Questionable whether it's classed as ramp or not, but I've put it in here anyway to highlight it generates mana. Removal, we seem to be very light on removal because we've got 8 pieces in total, and that is including the board wipe of Blasphemous Sight. And with Counterspell and Negate in here, I would play those in this deck as more of a protection type thing for when your stuff gets targeted. But Miirym already has Ward 2, so I'm not sure if we fully need those, and maybe we should just be on the full turbo beatdown plan. And then we have some token generators. Now, Miirym triggers off another non-token dragon entering the battlefield, so I'm not sure how good these are going to be in terms of getting copies of them. Obviously, the main dragon enters, we do get a copy of, and then the trigger that creates the token is then just bonus, but you won't get copies of the bonus token one, so maybe they still are worthwhile keeping depending on the playstyle that you want to go for. There is a couple of tutors in here as well. I'm considering cutting those and just maybe go for some more card draw or something along those lines. The mana base, yeah, it needs to be balanced out with more dual colours so we can enable ourselves to hit all 3 colours by the time we get to 6 mana, because that is the biggest struggle here for this now. So we're going to balance that mana base out a little bit. Also, there's a couple of tap lands in here as well which just don't need to be played. Path of Ancestry, yeah, it's great that it gives you a scry because we've got loads of dragons, but it's a big tempo hit, especially when we want to be proactive in playing all of our dragons. And then I've got some snooze cards that I've just put over here. They're not really snooze cards. Like, I understand fully why they are in this deck. Swiftfoot Boots, yes. Protect Miirym, protect your key dragon piece, yeah, could be great. Ghostly Flicker, Miirym obviously just cares about when something enters, not whether it's cast, so flickering stuff. If we want to be going down that game plan, like maybe we should be adding more of that. Panharmonicon, which is ETBs for dragons. Do we really want to double them up, or do we just want to beat people down with them? Casting dragons with this one, Renari, flash speed, like, that's great, but are we really going to be leaving 7 mana up every turn just to flash out 1 dragon? And then, like I mentioned earlier, the Earthquake Dragon, that's like a 15 mana 10/10. You know, a 5 mana dragon, a 5 power dragon, or 7 power dragon, or 4 power dragon is going to beat people down enough. Do we really need a 10/10 that requires a board state to be able to cast it? I don't think so. We're going to upgrade the lands, as in adding some different ones, increase the amount of lands in there. We definitely need to get some more interaction, because our key way of winning in this deck is going to be beating people down. I'm not sure we need to make our dragons any stronger than they already are because they're already pretty strong. So maybe the more power stuff and the token stuff will be on the cutting board as well. So yeah, we're going to go through it, pull some stuff out and add some cards in. It's at this point in the video that I'd just like to quickly jump in and say thank you very much for watching this far into the video. If you're enjoying yourself, consider hitting that thumbs up like button. If you've got any questions or comments, drop them down below. And yeah, if you'd like to see more deck techs and upgrades and things like this, consider hitting that subscribe button because this is what I do here on YouTube. Anyway, let's carry on. So here's a list of everything that I am cutting from the average deck. It's Exotic Orchard, Game Trial, Path of Ancestry, Temple of the Dragon Queen, Counterspell, Negate, Swiftfoot Boots, Cultivate, Ghostly Flicker, Kodama's Reach, Crucible of Fire, Anomicon, Renari, Traumatic Revelation, this guy the Butcher, we've got Kelga the Tide Star, we've got Savage Ventmaw, Teract World Render, Astral Dragon, and Earthquake Dragon. Regarding lands, Exotic Orchard, we don't want mana for what anybody else taps for, we want our specific mana. Game Trail, we don't want to be doing reveal lands, you know, we're just not on about that game. Path of Ancestry, like I said, comes in tapped, we don't want to be doing that. Temple of the Dragon Queen, this just forces you to reveal a dragon from your hand, which gives your opponent's information, we don't want that. Counterspell and Negate, like I said, they're more protective spells and we want to be proactive, so I've replaced these with 2 other effects. Swiftfoot Boots. I could see a world where you're running Swiftfoot Boots and Lightning Greaves, but we have our other haste enablers, so I've cut it. Cultivate, 3 mana. I'd sooner have 2 mana ramp in this deck. Ghostly Flicker, like I mentioned. If we're going down the Flicker plan, we need to add more of it. I'm not going down the Flicker plan, so I'm removing it. Kodama's Reach, like I said, 3 mana ramp, don't want it. Crucible of Fire, dragon creatures get +3/+3. Our dragons are already big, they're already flying, they're already going to hurt people. We've got a lot of direct damage with them. We don't need an extra +3/+3. It's not going to enable us to win the game. It's just win more, so it's gone. Same with Panamonicon. Yes, it doubles up some of this direct damage stuff, which makes it fantastic, but the odds of getting a 4 mana drop and then following it up with a 6-7 mana drop is slim to none. Then Renari, casting things at instant speed. If you are going down the route of using counter spells, maybe you want to play game changers like Cyclonic Rift, then Renari, and you're holding that mana up, Renari becomes a lot better. Shamanic Revelation, draw a card for each creature you control. Obviously Miirym makes copies of all of the dragons that we cast. This is sorcery speed 5 mana. Yeah, I see a world in which this exists within this deck, but it requires you having a big board state, so I would sooner replace that with something like Rishkar's Expertise, where you just need 1 big creature to draw a bunch of cards. We've got the Butcher here. Attacks double the power of each dragon you control. Like, once again, it's just win more. Our dragons are going to hurt people and they're going to beat people down. You know, we cast Draxeth. That's 14 damage because Miirym makes a copy of him. We don't then need to double the power even further. 14 damage is going to dome somebody enough. Kelgar the Tide Star. When it dies, you gain control of a target creature. This basically, it's kind of like giving it unblockable. It will get blocked at some point, but then it just depends on the board state to what you get. So maybe if you're playing a high power pod and you know there's always going to be something of value, then this has a place. Ventmaw, do we want to be ramping on turn 6? Yeah, depending on how good your curve is, but I've tried to reduce the curve of this deck a little bit. The World Render, like I said, it's just more damage for the sake of more damage. We don't really need it. Astral Dragon creates you some more dragons and allows you to copy non-creature permanents. So you could copy some of your ramp stuff, but you know, it's 7 mana, it's coming down quite late. I'm not sure. And same with Earthquake Dragon. 15 mana requires a board state to actually reduce the cost. I'm not going with it. So yeah, that's the 20 cards that I'm removing and why. Let me know if you disagree. Let's get onto the stuff I'm going to add in. The cards that I'm adding: Colossal Magistracy, Elemental Bond, Monastery Siege, Guardian Project, and Rishkar Expertise. Just lots more solid, consistent card draw for all the creatures that we're going to have on board. Protection-wise, we're going with Smuggler's Surprise and a Heroic Intervention, because once we've got 3 or 4 dragons on the battlefield and Miirym's copied them, we want to protect the entire board state. Yeah, so that's why we're going with those 2. We've got an extra ramp spell with 3 visits because it allows us to get a forest specifically, which helps when we get to our mana base, and I talk about that. Removal, we've added in Nature's Claim, Collective Resistance, and Untimely Malfunction. These modal spells are just absolutely fantastic in these types of decks that can run them, and Nature's Claim allows us to get rid of those pesky artifacts or enchantments that might be stacking us out of the game. We have a massive I win button with Bower's Passage. Creatures with flying can't block creatures we control. Obviously, we control a lot of flyers with having dragons, so this basically just gives all of our dragons unblockable for a mere 2 mana and 59 cents according to Card Kingdom. So yeah, pretty crazy. As for lands, we are putting 8 lands into this deck, taking us up to 39 lands in total. This increases our chance by 10% of making a land drop on turn 6. Before, at 35 lands, it was around about 20% chance of making your 6th land drop, pretty low. With these 39 lands now, it takes it up to 30%, or just over 30%, which is a lot better. Regards to turn 5, that gives us around about a 45% chance of hitting our land drop on turn 5. With the extra ramp and all the ramp that we are currently running in the deck, I feel that this is sufficient. So yeah, there we go. If you, with the lands as well, shock lands, you know, and surveil lands. You could also run the fetches as well if you have them. That allows you to get everything specifically you need out of your deck. So yeah, loads of choices when it comes to lands. Just make sure you've got as many dual colours as you can to balance out your deck. So as you can see with our mana curve now, we've reduced the top end a little bit now to make things a little bit smoother. As mentioned, the 4 drops are still lacking, but with the extra land drops we've now got on top of the ramp, there is a good chance on turn 4 we will now be at 5 mana, meaning we'll be casting one of these on turn 5, if not double spelling our 2 drops on turn 4, allowing us to ramp heavily out on turn 5. So yeah, all of our mana is covered. Blue is 20% of our deck now, which is covered by 41% of our mana producer. Red is 46, covered by 56, and green is 48, covered by 59. So we're a lot more heavy now in the red and the green. The average mana value of our deck now is 3.47. So we reduce that by 0.6, or 0.63 if you want to be exact, allowing us now to double spell once we get to 7 mana rather than 8, which is a big difference in our turns, because that's the difference between winning on, say, turn 8 or turn 9. And as we know from stats that have been released over the last year or two, most games tend to end around anywhere between, say, let's 8 and 10. So that turn 9 marker is quite key. So for those that you are wondering about budget-wise, the deck was valued at around about $322 according to Moxfield when I started, and now it's sitting at $399. So that's around about $77 according to Moxfield that's been put into the deck. Obviously, when you're buying and trading, you're probably going to get better prices than what Moxfield suggests. So yeah, I would say you could easily upgrade it to this level for an easy $50. And if you are playing around at this level, getting this extra bit of synergy could help increase your win percentage slightly. If you are wanting to go down the game changers routes, my 2 main ones I would suggest is your Jeska's Will and your Cyclonic Rift. Yeah, especially with Cyclonic Rift being a one-sided board wipe, it allows you to hold mana up, play like, I've got nothing, guys, it's just this, and then all of a sudden wipe everybody's stuff, drop a bunch of dragons, now everybody's an entire turn behind you. Yeah, Jeska's Will obviously is just extra explosive card draw, extra ramp, depending on how well your opponents are doing. You could go down the route of adding more of your like Rhystic Studies and stuff like that, but personally I just find that those cards make you too much of a threat, whereas the Cyclonic Rift and Jeska's Will, it's kind of like a one and done, boom, done, sorted, moved on. Everybody kind of forgets about it a turn or two later. Where else could you take this deck? Well, I guess it's whether you want to take it into that like power 4 type bracket range and start running more and more tutors and things like that. But just be careful when you start going down that road, because the more tutors that you add, the more linear your gameplay becomes, which is why I added more card draw. I didn't remove the 2 tutors in the end, because I figured we'll just draw into those and then we can use that to go to get our game-winning dragon to push through and win with that. One last thing to mention is, if you have got a Miirym Sentinel Wyrm deck, do not upgrade right now. I have not taken into account the new cards that are just starting to be spoiled for the Dragonstorm Tarkir set. There's going to be a lot of new cards coming. The ones that have been revealed so far is the Mox Jasper and the Sarkhan himself, the 2-mana red one. Yeah, which could be great value for these deck. Wait for some more card previews, see what comes out, and then upgrade in about a month or two's time once the prices have settled. That being said, thank you very much for watching. If you want to see some more deck techs, there'll be a whole playlist up here that you can go watch. And I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye for now.